Well, I'm sure those of us who were paying attention back, my God, 15 years ago, were stunned at the surprise visit of George W. Bush to the combat zone of Iraq. And he brought in the Thanksgiving turkey and surprised everybody, and heartwarming moment for the troops that were there and a heartwarming moment for those of us at home. And now Donald Trump is also going into hostile territory and braving enemy fire. He's going to be appearing at a fundraiser in Los Angeles here. Yeah, you want to talk about taking risks. And he will also hearten the troops that are in this particular theater. And that will be the theater. And so that's that. Now, as Donald Trump makes his appearance in Hollywood, many people are scoffing at the entire idea, saying that none of the high-profile stars are going to be there and that it's basically going to be, one person said, might as well have been held in St. Louis.
Ooh.
St. Louis. It's one of those other places that are not Santa Monica or Pacific Palisades or Brentwood or something. Steve, I continually come back to the idea that the reason that the entertainment people, the leftists in the entertainment business, hate this man so much, just so viscerally, is because he is, in essence, one of them. Has been in television. He understands the power of rhetoric. He understands the Twitter, all of it. I think it bothers them so much that he is actually good at the things that they have only been good at before, and that which Republicans have just simply been unable to do, which is communicate using mass media.
It's a thing to see. First of all, though, I would like to speak up in defense of St. Louis. I grew up there, not just in the suburbs, yeah, but in the city itself, in the central West End, and I would put up the lowliest St. Louisan against the highest grossing entertainer in Hollywood and find that entertainer come up wanting, and not by a close margin. The worst people in the world are in Hollywood, and yet, I mean, look at the scandals we've been finding out about in the last 5 or 6 months since the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke, and it's not even a scandal. Everybody knew. It wasn't a secret. The man is an abuser. He's a rapist. He's all the rest. And he was put up on a pedestal in Hollywood because he could bring in the money. He could produce the big grossing movies. And we are literally talking about the worst people in America inhabit this industry that uses and abuses and degrades, all for the sake of putting up movies that usually aren't very good. So let's clear the air of that. This all comes to a part. They measure each other based on their grosses, on their receipts, on their audiences, instead of on their quality as human beings. And that is the saddest thing I think you could possibly say about the entertainment industry. So of course they hate Donald Trump, who does what they do, but he does it in the Oval Office. He has real power, not the glitz, not the glamour, but actual real executive authority, and they're dying for it. Bill, let me give you a little trivia question that I know you know the answer to. What does Hollywood call Washington, D.C.?
I don't know.
They call it Hollywood for ugly people.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
I did know that, but I'd forgotten. That's right.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Hollywood is for people who are ugly on the inside, and we're seeing another case of that.
Well said. Scott, one of the people who's attending this fundraiser said in this story I saw that you can't imagine how toxic it is out here. And I'm telling you, both of you and all of our members that are watching, you can't imagine. You think you can, but you can't imagine. There may or may not have been a collection of conservatives in Hollywood at some point in time, and I may or may not have hosted many, many, many of those meetings.
This is sounding
and I may
like
or may not
OJ's
have seen,
confession video.
Thank you very much. And I may or may not have seen enormous numbers of people, grown men, women, patriotic Americans, in very intimate circumstances over the course of 7 or 8 years, with tears in their eyes, talking about not just the intimidation, but the thing that seemed to bother them the most, understandably enough, I suppose, is is the way that they had to agree with things like, oh, the Iraq war is just all about oil and murder and our troops are rapists and psychopaths, right, Jim? And they'd have to look at their shoes and just go, yeah. Because they know that they'll never work again. And that's the truth. That's the truth in Hollywood. What do you say about the state of the country where you simply cannot talk about the President of the United States in public in Los Angeles because these leftists are not about a difference of opinion. They will get up. Sometimes they'll throw water in your face or they'll key your car or whatever. We just see it all the time here. What do you say about that kind of intimidation, and what do you think we ought to do about it?
It would be, in any normal workplace, considered a form of harassment that would
and
be... And
we would sue them into the ground.
Yes, at the very least against company policy at almost every place that I've ever worked, it may be a violation of federal law. I mean, on a regular basis where I work my full-time job, we watch videos that teach us not to harass people for their political views, for their sexual preferences, for their whatever. And there's nobody where I work who's been hired based on their agreement with the political views of the boss, and there's nobody who's been fired as a result of their disagreement with the political views of the boss, and there's nobody who feels a hostile workplace environment because of any kind of political viewpoints or religious viewpoints, for that matter. I think the reason why we cannot fathom what you have experienced and seen first and secondhand in Hollywood is that we live in the real world. We live in places where such behavior would be abhorrent, would not be tolerated. People who created that kind of atmosphere would be gone, because you can't have a successful company if you've got people who are stabbing each other in the back because of things that are completely unrelated to the work environment. So I think I don't know. Somebody needs to make a movie about this, about how, sadly, but you can't get this movie made because nobody could be in it because they'd be afraid, But I don't think we can understand, a guy who works in a retail store with a bunch of salespeople and, works with dock workers and janitors and all kinds of other people. That doesn't happen where we are. And if we do have political discussions, it's all good-natured, we love each other, kind of joking around about our disagreements, but never hostile.
On some level, conservatives in Hollywood don't experience a hostile work environment because once it's known that they're conservatives, they don't have a work environment anymore. Yeah. It's very, very seriously bad out here. And I've often had a oscillating opinion on whether or not the reason it's so bad is because no one is speaking up and no one is suing them and no one is, is basically, we don't have a Rosa Parks, so not many of us anyway, somebody's going to just say, this is it, this is going to stop right now, as that person did with Harvey Weinstein. There's one other interesting thing about President Trump's visit, which I think is indicative of him, his character, the nature of the presidency, and some of his predecessors. When Barack Obama visited Los Angeles, it was a 30-car convoy that basically shut down freeways in advance of where he was going and after where he was going, added something like 3 or 4 hours commute time to millions and millions of people, and he came out here all the time. The story on the Trump fundraiser is that the president says he'd like to get in and get out, and that's it. And there's not going to be a convoy, there's not going to be a big police escort, there's going to be security, needless to say. But the footprint is going to be a 20th the size of Obama's, which tells me that if it's possible to get a president in and out of these things without shutting down the entire city, why is it that Donald Trump is willing to do that and Barack Obama is not? Could it be that Donald Trump has already had success and ridden in limousines pretty much his entire life and doesn't need to show everybody what a big, important guy he is? Is it that? Because if it can be done, it makes you wonder why it isn't done. And what does it say about your attitude towards the American people? And by the way, this is Donald Trump coming to Los Angeles, a city that he did not win, and going into Hollywood, an entertainment business he also did not win. Why is he so willing to simply say, no, we don't need all of this fuss and bother. Let's just get in and get out? a fundraiser. I find that very interesting. Find a lot of things very interesting, and that's why we're here. Thanks again for your continuing patronage and your support of our efforts here, and we really genuinely do appreciate it every single time. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and we'll see you next week on your Members Only Right Angle.